Today I'm going to show you how I transfer my beers into kegs with minimal oxygen uptake. I've got a Quebec IPA here that I'd like to, not get skunky or taste like cardboard or lose any nice golden color. So I'm gonna try to minimize the oxygen. If you minimize oxygen, you can have it last longer. The flavor will stay more fresh. I usually bottle a few or can a few of each keg that I do. So I want them to stay as fresh as possible because that's what I usually send into competitions. Because, I enter 5 or so competitions a year and I can't just brew specifically for one competition. So I try to keep a stash. That's what's behind the black curtain if you've seen my Instagram. So I'm going to show you guys how to purge your keg, hook up a sanitized line that's also purged, and drape in a CO2 line. So what you're gonna need for this is obviously your fermenter with your beer in it. You're gonna need a keg. I have ball lock kegs, a CO2 system, your line that goes from your fermenter to your keg. So this line has a threaded valve that hooks up to my Spike Brewing Flex. And this is pretty specific valve for this fermenter. A lot of them you can just throw a hose on without any attachment. Then I have my ball lock connect that will correspond to my ball lock posts on my keg. So it's really important that you have a ball lock connection because if you just drape a line into the keg through the mouth, I guess, you're going to pick up a lot of oxygen because there's just nothing preventing it. You can drape a line of CO2 in there if you want, but this is the best way to do it. So we're going to purge our keg now. So to do a purge, you're going to need a line from your CO2 tank to your gas line. You can use the ones that are inside your kegerator if you've got it. So we're going to attach this to the liquid line actually because we want the gas to go all the way to the bottom of the keg. So then it forces all the oxygen to the top of the keg, and then we're going to release it with this valve. So I'm just going to throw it on. Turn on my CO2. I'm just going to turn it on to 5 and let it fill. All right, it sounds like my CO2 is filled in here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off, purge this, and you're gonna wanna do this around 5 times. All right, so it's empty again. I'm gonna turn my CO2 back on with the valve closed. Refill, empty, refill, empty. So for my last fill, I'm actually not going to empty it. I'm going to let the CO2 sit in there, and we're going to use the CO2 that's in there to purge this line that we've got. That is what's going to connect the fermenter to the keg. I don't know if everyone does this, but it's an easy way to get any sanitizer out of the liquid line or just anything that's sitting in the bottom. This keg was sanitized with Star San, so there might be a little bit left just sitting in the keg that I'd like to get out. It's not necessary because it's food safe, but basically how I'm going to do this is this is completely sanitized, so it's got Star San in it right now. It's just sitting there. and I'm going to attach my ball lock attachment to my liquid line. It'll force any star sand that's in there, and it will force CO2 through the line. So then I'm going to relatively quickly attach it to my valve. So I'm going to go ahead and sanitize my valve on my fermenter right now. So it's just sitting in there ready to go. I'm going to pull my gas line from there. I'm going to empty my line of star sand that has been sitting in there and sanitizing. You have to connect the attachment to your keg before you connect your line to your fermenter, or you'll get all the oxygen that's in here right now inside your fermenter, and you'll probably get some star sand because this is going to shoot star sand everywhere. I just grabbed a random cup sitting on my shelf so that I can catch any star sand that's going to explode. Let's attach this. So we're going liquid line, and then we're going to make sure that this is in a cup. Okay, so it's still got CO2 pumping through it. Okay, we're attached. All right, so we've set this up. So this is pretty much an oxygen-free environment. And now I'm going to drape a line of CO2 into my bung hole where my airlock sits usually, so that it has a blanket of CO2 on top of the beer as well. Because like it's gonna pull air from the atmosphere just by nature of it draining into the keg. So you're gonna wanna kind of replace the air with something else, which is our CO2. So I'm just gonna detach. I'm gonna turn off my CO2 before I do that. I'm gonna take this line off. So this line is what I'm going to use in the bunghole. So I'm just pulling my airlock. I'm just pulling my airlock and draping this in. And I let it just sit there. It's not hurting anything. So I go ahead, I set my CO2 at around, like, truly the lowest I can get it, with still being able to hear it going in. Okay, so now we're ready to actually start transferring the beer. I'm just going to go ahead and pull my release valve. You can also, if you don't have a release valve on your on your keg, you can use a gas out attachment with nothing attached and just hook it on to relieve pressure. But this one's really nice because it's got the little release valve. Okay, so just pulling my lever. That's a really nice clean beer. I haven't actually fined this with anything, so the Quebec yeast is really doing what it's supposed to and doing a super clean, highly attenuative ferment. Okay, now that this is done transferring, I'm just gonna pull it. I'm gonna take my CO2 line and just purge the top headspace right now, just as a kind of safety measure. If I can get it on. All right, should be good to go with very little oxygen in there, and I'm just gonna throw it in the kegerator and carbonate it over the course of a few days. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, like and subscribe. Thanks.